Music. It's a fun little thing that's implemented in any piece of entertainment for the simple reason that it can completely change the mood of a scene. If you're watching a show, there's a good chance the music can change how you feel from this to this. Now, how do we get from this to this? Well, it's pretty easy to break down. See, usually, when you're watching something, usually an anime in these instances, there's likely a scene that will completely captivate you with what's going on. Now, as is, it's perfectly good on its own. But this is where we take a step forward with things in a big way. Music is something that helps us calm down, feel more excited, all sorts of emotions, and as such, it's an incredibly powerful and useful tool in these scenarios where it can increase the intense feeling that the show is giving you, and as such, perfectly wrap up the whole thing in a beautiful bundle. Now obviously this is a matter of having some great compositions, as well as the right timing on the scene, and the right sections of the track playing, but when it all does work out, it can create an absolute fantastic result. Anyways, enough of the more boring stuff, let's focus our attention on the big focus of this video. Games. Much like any good show, a good game can create some powerful tracks to go alongside a perfect moment. But some games out there take things even further beyond. Some games just take that music and decide, hey, so what if we implemented certain parts of the song to play at certain moments in the game? I feel like that would work. Dynamic music is what we get. Dynamic music. This shit is cool as fuck and rocks super damn hard. Dynamic music as a concept is really super simple, but believe it or not, it's not implemented that often. Not to say it's uncommon, it's been done a decent amount of times with some games, but a lot of games don't really take that extra step to implement it. Now, this whole thing might sound very confusing to somebody who might not know what this is or what it means. So, I'm going to give you all 3 examples of games with dynamic music that I'm also going to break down and show the varying levels of dynamic music that exists. Level 1 will be more simple, but interesting nonetheless. Level 2 will be a little bit more complex. Level 3 will be, what the actual fuck, you didn't need to go this far with music, please just go home and get some rest, oh god. Also give some more examples during the end, since I have a lot I want to say about these 3 examples, and to be honest, if we include more in this video, this will end up being 2 hours long, and I mean that's not really uncommon on this channel, come to think of it. Oh yeah, and spoilers on Sonic Frontiers, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and Devil May Cry 5, so I recommend that you scurry away if you don't want spoilers on that. Alright, we good? Alright, let's get this started. If it was possible to climax over a boss fight in a video game, I think Sonic Frontiers could very easily get me off. Sonic games have always had a killer soundtrack, but with this game, they decided to add one little thing that spices things up a whole lot. Violence. The boss fights in Frontiers are some of the most hype as shit boss fights that I've ever had the liberty of playing in a video game. You're free to have whatever opinion you want on the combat system of this game, but for me personally, the combat in this game is absolutely fantastic, and I would go as far as to say it is the highlight of the game. Now, what did Sega decide to do in order to improve this even further? They put in the usual butt rock you'd expect from a Sonic game, but they took different parts of the song and put it in certain moments of the fight. Also, each song has a lyric that connects to the other songs, but that part doesn't really matter. I put Sonic Frontiers as our level 1 example, since it's just the tip of the dynamic music iceberg. However, it's still worth mentioning, of course. So we start off the boss fight with not our butt rock music you'd expect, but actually the music that plays for the Titan. I feel this is important to mention, as this adds a whole lot more to the fight in making the music and the general style of the fight a lot more dynamic. As soon as you grab the last emerald though, we reach a complete tone shift. The song goes from something very heavy and ominous feeling for the Titan to something a lot more uplifting for both the player and Sonic, and more aggressive towards the Titan as the song finally kicks in. From here, the boss fight really begins, and just for a moment here, listen to this music, because yeah, it's corny like you'd expect from a Sonic game, but holy shit, it's too good. Anyways, the simple part of the dynamic music here is the fact that the first part of the song plays while the boss is in its first phase, and after the chorus plays, the song completely loops back until the boss has finally hit half health. Once you do get to that point though, it plays a cutscene for the boss to enter the second phase, and as such, so does the music in shifting towards that exact same moment at the exact same time. So now, you get to do the rest of this fight, while also finally getting to hear the rest of the song that is yet to play. The last change here being that once you enter the end of the fight, you get a cutscene, and as that cutscene is playing, the song enters the last 15 seconds that it's been avoiding this whole time.
Welcome to the mind of a different kind. We've been growing slowly. Think I'm on 11, but I'm on a 9. Guess you don't really know me. Running from the past is a losing game. It never brings you glory. Been down this road before. Already know the story.
Overall, it's generally pretty simple, like I mentioned, but it's a big enough change that it makes this fight a whole lot more immersive and a whole lot more exciting to go through. Hell, it's so easy that it makes me think that this should be a whole lot more common in a lot more games. Like, it's just really damn cool to see. Also, as a side note, I just want to add, I really fucking love the last Titan in this game, Supreme. The music there doesn't actually start off with the, first part of the song. It starts off instrumental. And when you get the boss to half health, not only does the song kick in, it specifically goes to the chorus, and that is just really fucking cool, and is a perfect way of showing that this is it. You've reached the end of your journey, and this is now the final Titan you have to face. Unless you played the game on hard mode though, then it's the second final threat you have to face. I'm gonna be honest, I've had this game for quite a while now, and ever since I got it and played through the whole thing, I have desperately wanted to do a video like this just to talk about how well dynamic music works. So thank you, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, for inspiring this idea. Anyways, Metal Gear Rising, not a real word, is usually the immediate example people think of when talking about dynamic music, and it makes sense since this game's personality, outside of the goofy humor that happens in Metal Gear games usually, and also the fun hack and slash, slice and dice combat, is its music. Specifically with how it can really raise the experience you're having with the boss fights in the game. This game will be our level 2 example, since it's more unique than Sonic Frontiers, but it's still not anything absolutely insane. It's basically our perfect middle ground for dynamic music, so it works perfectly as our level 2 example. So, Rising's music has two different variants that we can talk about here, the battle music and the boss music. The battle tracks of this game have, interestingly enough, 3 whole layers to them, which might get you thinking, well, Nia, you said the exact same thing about Frontiers, so what's different about this? Great point. Counterpoint. Shush. I'm getting to that, you big doof. Let's look at Rising's title for a moment to point something out. You see this? These two words here? Yeah, Metal Gear. Now, what is that, you may ask? Well, a dead franchise for one thing, but it's also the name of the series. The series, primarily about stealth. In said series, there are 3 different types of states that the enemy can be in. Neutral, caution, and alert. Much like that, Rising's battle music is the exact same. All of the battle tracks have 3 different variations on them, depending on the state that the enemy is in at that moment. If they're neutral, the music is generally calm, but it still gives that feel of being on a secret mission. They get to caution, and the music picks up a bit, as if alluding to a battle that might happen if one wrong step is made by either the player or the enemy. And finally, the third variant, the alert status, where the music fully kicks in, lyrics and all, and, well, it makes sense, given the battle has just started. It's a small detail, but man, it is really fucking good music design, and it helps a whole lot in adding to the immersion of the whole game. Even if you don't like the battle music in this game, which, from what I've seen, seems to be the common opinion, you gotta note that this is some really damn good design, and hey, I think they deserve the credit for putting in that much effort. Alright, and now for the topic that a lot of people enjoy. The boss music to this game. I think it's generally safe to say that everybody loves these tracks, even people who haven't played Metal Gear Rising or any Metal Gear game. Hell, I think even some people who don't even really play video games probably enjoy some of these tracks. Whether it's the song associated with the cool samurai man with the shotgun sword that has fire to it, I guess, or the big buff as shit senator who talks about college ball and also joining the Navy, and then he punts you like me spotting a seagull out in the open. My personal favorite is Hot Wind Blowing, which is unfortunate, because it's the one they refuse to release on any streaming service. But anyways, focusing on our actual topic to this instead of the funny little music that the game provides. The dynamic aspect to it. I mentioned earlier that the change of a song can really help build on the immersion and excitement to a battle, and oh boy, does the boss music here really do it. The boss tracks here are pretty similar to the previously mentioned battle tracks, but there's a difference here in terms of scenario that I think really adds a whole lot to things. Picture this. You're currently fighting a boss who is in a really cool cyborg suit, using an interesting but simple weapon. You've got some good action between you and them, some great dialogue in there and some one-liners, and the music is this great mix of techno and rock, which almost sounds a little bit weird, but it's really exciting nonetheless, and very much adds to the fight. But then it happens. You get the boss to halfway through their HP, you got a cutscene playing that seems like they're gonna finally get serious with this fight, and then... the lyrics to the song finally kick in, and not just the lyrics, but specifically the chorus starts first, and it already adds a whole lot more excitement to the massive amount of excitement that this fight had currently. Now, sure, this example isn't exactly new here. We brought up a similar example to the final boss track in Sonic Frontiers, but I think there's two big differences here that are worth noting. One, with Sonic Frontiers, that was for a singular fight, and while that still makes it very interesting nonetheless, when compared to Rising, where that happens in every single boss track and makes each boss track their own spectacle, Sonic Frontiers does seem a lot more simple. And two, much like how Sonic Frontiers had a different scenario for its final boss track, we have a different scenario for the final boss track of Rising. So once you reach the big senator man that everybody loves, Armstrong, and you get the cool blood red blade that shoots out like a gun, you finally get the track known as It Has to Be This Way. Something interesting to note with this track though is that the lyrics are there to begin with. No cut-in with them, no immediate chorus. The song just begins then and there. But fun fact for those who may not know, or those who didn't notice while playing, there is in fact an instrumental version of the track that plays in this fight. If you lose Sam's Muramasa at any point in this fight, the song goes right back to its instrumental version, which really adds a whole lot to this fight. It gives the implication that the sword is the only way to end Armstrong's life. The only way to end this entire fight. So when the lyrics completely cut out, it makes it feel as if the song is trying to really push you to get back up and grab that blade, or else your fight against Armstrong will result in nothing. It's a small change with the usual boss music, but it's a small enough change that I think it's able to tell a story on its own with just the music alone. Anyways, I think it's time we head into our last big example of the video that perfectly encompasses why dynamic music is an amazing tool to use. I think it's time we talk about my literal favorite game on Earth. Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry 5. Where do we even fucking begin with this, honestly? Okay, so before we even fully talk about this game's music, let's just think about the previous examples that we've brought up with dynamic music on this video. We mentioned the more simple but cool dynamic tracks from Sonic Frontiers, the more advanced tracks from Revengeance that really help build on the scenario of everything. So now let's take those things, right? And throw them out the fucking window. Because if we're going to compare those two to DMC5's dynamic music, this is the literal equivalent to the coughing baby trying to fight the hydrogen bomb. There are so many fucking layers here to talk about. It is unreal. Let me try and say all of this without either dying in the process or completely just collapsing from taking it all in. The main thing to look at here is the battle tracks that each character has. First off, each character has their own unique battle track that plays for just them. It doesn't change much, however, it can give a fresh feel to all the characters, and as such, can help with the immersion of the game. The track begins, and much like what I mentioned with Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, the song stays generally at a low feeling point, with just instruments and a very calm tone to it, which makes sense given that the fight hasn't properly started yet. But as soon as you strike, bam, everything properly begins. Now I could list a lot of what comes next, but for the sake of saving time, I'm going to shorten this down a whole lot, just so that it doesn't take as long, as well as it's easier to understand. Devil May Cry 5 has a style system to it, meaning the more stylish your combos, the higher style ranking you get, with the lowest of that being D, and the highest of that being triple S. Now why does this matter for the tracks? Simple really, because somebody at Capcom decided to open up their third eye and realized the ultimate way to get a player hyped up is to change the track depending on the rank the player has. From ranks D to C, the song starts with the opening lyrics. As we move on to B and A, we reach the instrumental again, but this time it's different, and specifically with A, we get a looped build-up of the instrumental, essentially to motivate you to reach the highest point of the song. You hit S, SS, or SSS, and there it is. The chorus finally begins, and it is the coolest fucking music design on this planet. The adrenaline rush you end up feeling after this happens is insane. And the best part about this is this thing happens every single battle. And there are 4 character tracks. So you get to experience this multiple times in different ways. DMC5 is genuinely insane with how well it handles music, and it really amazes me. I cannot think of any other game that could possibly top this. I don't think there ever will be a game that can top this peak music design. It's a shame though that that's really all we have to speak about DMC5 about in terms of the dynamic music stuff. Nothing else. Just the character battle tracks have that dynamic feel, but nothing else. It's real sad. Oh, except for... we finally get to speak about Mr. Storm is Approaching guy, except we're not even talking about Bury the Light here. No, far from it. We're actually talking about the actual boss theme that Virgil, and also Dante if you're playing the game as Virgil, has. Now, other than being a pretty damn great boss track, the duel, believe it or not, does actually have a dynamic element to it, which makes sense given that in either campaign you're fighting a character who you can actually play as. While not as wild as the character tracks we previously went over, this is still interesting and worth to mention nonetheless. The duel starts off with a menacing but cool feel to it, and as that's playing, Dante and Virgil begin to fight. It's an odd thing to mention, but much like how Dante and Virgil are very even in power and skill, the track actually gives a good feeling of that by playing 2 different styles in the track that are very similar to Dante's battle theme, Subhuman, and Virgil's previous boss tracks throughout it. But even if Dante and Virgil are perfectly matched on all grounds, they're still holding back, and the song perfectly replicates that, because now we get to talk about the second part to the track. either Dante or Virgil activate their Sin DT, and if you're cool, you'll do that as well, and all of a sudden, the song becomes chaotic and horrifying. This doesn't really feel like a game anymore. They are outright trying to kill each other, which, yes, even the dialogue gives that away. But something as simple as this change in music easily helps in knocking that into your brain. I don't really see a lot of comments regarding this track, and I especially wanted to talk about it because while yes, the character battle tracks are great and they're absolutely fantastic with how they handle the dynamic music element, the duel is insanely genius with how well it's constructed. It might honestly be my favorite boss track in the game, only really competing with Voltaic Black Knight. Yep, just those two. Not any other boss track. Just those two. Hey, so have you ever played a game where they just fucking decided, yeah, the coolest way we can make our music dynamic is if we take a whole ass different song and we just shove it in there. It's a completely different pace and feel to the main song, but have it be perfectly transitioned into that song. Welcome to Silver Bullet, everybody. This fucking track has zero reason to go as hard as it does. Yes, it's the final boss track, so it's fair to expect something absolutely fantastic for the end. Hell, the previous two game examples have some amazing music for the final bosses. But they do not even compare in the slightest to Silver Bullet. So after the big reveal of Nero's DT and the fight between him and his father begins, we get this slow, sad violin piece. It's super nice and kind of shows how Nero feels, now knowing who his father is and the countless problems going through his mind at this moment. But once he's finally ready to accept everything, and once the game gives you the command, you receive the ability to... And immediately, the track switches over to the real Silver Bullet. An absolutely bombastic and hype as fuck track. The best part about it being the feel of the track. This track isn't playing for Virgil. Oh no. No. This track is playing for you. The game is telling you to get in there and beat his fucking ass. But wait, there's more. Remember what we talked about with every single previous example? Do you remember? About how I said that every track kinda overall has this instrumental start to them? Guess what Silver Bullet has? Silver Bullet is hype as shit, and it only starts off by being instrumental. It's not until you kick Virgil's ass enough times and hit him with enough Devil Buster moves that the lyrics kick in. But when they do, you realize something. These aren't just any lyrics. They're the lyrics to Devil Trigger, Nero's battle theme. It's playing a remix of his song while you fight the final boss as you absolutely wreck shit using Nero. This might, honest to God, be the greatest fucking video game track ever conceived. It's not some large, fantastic orchestra or something insane like that. It's a lot more simple. But even if it's simple, it is so insanely well done and beautiful as a music track that I am in complete awe of it. There's a bunch of other games that have dynamic music tracks that we could talk about, but I feel as though if we talk about them, this video will get way too long and just really won't work out super well. So, we'll still talk about them in a way. I am going to let Silver Bullet just play for you all. You'll get to hear it right now. And as it's playing, I will provide some more examples on screen of games with dynamic music in them. My name is Niab, and I am absolutely in love with the Devil May Cry series.